Hi,
Hi. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. So, just want to start. So, how's your day been?
My day has been okay, I guess, given everything.
Yeah, must be.
Um,
Yeah. So, I just like to start by saying thank you for joining us on this busy afternoon and taking time off your schedule, and taking this interview with us.
thank you.
And yeah. So, I'll start with the questions now. So, if could you please give a brief introduction to yourself and the organization, and in a nutshell, what is the cause that you work with, and how do you help?
Okay. So, my name is Divya Narayanan. I have a background in public health and human rights. Um,
Okay.
I've worked in like the grassroots and like grassroots environmental and public health space for about 9 years now. And I currently am the campaigns director at chatka.org, which
Okay.
means I manage the campaigns team. Uh, and we work on a range of issues, but we primarily have two teams, one that works on air pollution and climate change, and
Okay.
another team that works on gender and sexuality and women's rights. But outside of all this, we also jump on any social justice issue that may come up that's in the news that people are talking about, where people have specific demands out of either a government or culture, like a cultural or even like a corporate leader as well. Yeah, when it comes to holding them accountable. So yeah, so that's primarily what we work on.
Okay, that's really amazing that you're taking on these issues, especially such as climate change, which is more known, and which is at this, and as well as gender and women's rights, which is also equally important, and as in India has been coming up, um, is quite regularly in these past few years. So that's really good that you're being part of such a great organization. So
Thank you.
may I know what triggered you or your team to start this organization?
So I was not the one who started this organization. It was started by Deepa Gupta about 8 years ago. Um, and so the people who started it and were part of the inception of chatka.org used to previously work at places like Greenpeace and Change.org and
Oh,
Amnesty.
okay.
And so they're all from sort of the same universe. And they, like, Deepa started it, and then a bunch of others joined her after. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, because um, I think this was in 2012, where at that point we didn't really have different teams.
Okay.
It was just a group of campaigners working on any issue that may come up. So it was basically a multi-issue campaigning organization at that point.
Okay. That's really cool, and especially since they already have a background in like coming from Amnesty and Change.org, it gives them already a platform to start in the new organization, which must have been really helpful for
Yeah,
fellow employees and volunteers to get.
yeah.
What have been your top one or two learnings, surprises, or takeaways from your journey about yourself, from your journey with Chatka.com?
Um, One, I think for sure, is that people power works.
Definitely.
And that was actually something that I didn't believe in when I first joined Chaka. I was a grassroots person. I used to work in villages and towns, and um, I didn't really believe in digital campaigning as
Hmm.
much at that point. But the campaign that really changed my perspective about digital campaigning was the Unilever campaign. Do you know about the Unilever campaign?
I've heard
Where
about it, but I've not knew. Like,
Right. So basically, Hindustan Unilever had a thermometer factory in Kodaikanal,
Okay.
and in the 80s, and they have been they were dumping mercury
Okay.
into
Yes.
the Pambalchora forests in
Hmm.
Kodaikanal, and which was contaminating the groundwater. Um, and even the workers in the factory did not have protection, and so even now, like 2 to 3 generations after, children are born with cerebral
Oh,
palsy, and they have growth defects and stuff like that. So this was a campaign that, it was a court case which was running for like 12 years at that point. And so I was then associated with the group that was working on this campaign, and we actually approached jhatka.org at that point,
yeah.
saying, let's take this campaign online and let's see what we can do with it. And so and we also released this rap, like a parody rap video
Oh, okay.
about it, and it was called Kodaikanal Won't. It got like 2 million views over 2 weekends or something. Like, it was
Wow.
crazy. And this was in 2014,
Oh, wow.
2014, 15. And so 2015, right? So um, that was a campaign, like, and it was all like lots of working on Twitter, and targeting Unilever's top folks
Hmm.
in the leadership, the corporate leadership, and just because of the sheer number of people who were involved in the campaign, I think that really changed my mind around digital campaigning, and using people power to demand for social justice and justice in general.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that was a huge learning for me. Um, and I think another one is just the concept of intersectionality, that literally everything is connected, and you can't just look at campaigns from just one angle, and it affects different people in different ways, and all of that has to be acknowledged as a framework of understanding.
I
So
think,
those will be my two.
sorry, but I think what you said about digital campaigning can really be visible right now, in at least in 2020 and 2021 across the world, with the whole racism in America and the elections right now, and the
Yeah,
um, the COVID crisis that's going on. Especially a lot of young people are so involved in the social
absolutely.
media, which is really amazing to see their voice
Yeah,
being spread. So that's really amazing.
yeah.
Yeah. So, what are some myths or stereotypes that around the work that you work with, and what is the actual reality?
Um, so because we're a digital campaigning organization and we run online petitions,
Hmm.
one we get a couple of questions. One is, how are you different from change.org? Is the question we get all the time, because we also have online petitions. But the difference is that we don't have a platform. I mean, we used to have a platform where anyone can start a campaign, but that's not technically how we work. So Change is essentially a platform where anyone can come and start a campaign, and campaign for it themselves and get things done. But we aren't a platform. We're an organization that actually, like, we jump into these issues ourselves, and campaigners start these campaigns. We also work with partners and other on ground organizations to take their campaigns online, to give them more visibility. uh, so that's one thing. Like, how are you different from change is one. And also another question, another myth is that online petitions don't work, or that's also a question that we get, is that what is going to happen if I
Hmm.
sign this petition. So one thing we like to say is that signing a petition is one part of a lot of behind the scenes work that goes on, because
Hmm.
you are just registering your protest, or adding your voice to a campaign. But in the background, campaigners are calling that decision maker. We're writing, like, so when you deal with a government agency or a government or a bureaucrat for a particular demand,
Hmm.
you need to first write in a letter to them, like by registered post. It has to be acknowledged by them. So we leave a paper trail, because then once, if they don't acknowledge it, if they don't respond to us, then we escalate it to calls. And we campaigners actually go and sit in those offices and try and meet with them, saying, hey, we've started a petition, we have thousands of people who have signed it, what are you going to do about it? And so we sort of work with decision makers to see how we can solve the issue. And there's a lot of research that goes on in the background. We work with partners who already know a lot about it, and we involve them in these campaigns as well, because we're not researchers. They provide us all the information. We also work with other experts who give us that information, especially with something like air pollution and climate change. It requires a lot of stats and numbers, and so that's not our forte. Our forte is actually citizen mobilization. So a lot of work happens in the background, and so when anyone asks us, like, what is my signature going to do, this is how it helps, because we are taking number of people, because I think there is something in the phrase strength in numbers, because we are taking all of these people to the decision maker. We're taking these voices to them. Because if I just as an individual went and stood outside some bureaucrat's office, he's really not going to care. So, but I represent everyone who signed that petition. And so, so, that's a very common question that we get.
So how long have you been with Jhatka?
I have been here, I just completed 5 years.
Okay. And so, what have been some learnings around leading a team, if you do lead a team? And what?
Wow, lots. I actually started off at Jhatka as a campaigner.
Okay.
And then I became campaigns manager. I used to manage the air pollution team.
Okay.
And now I'm campaigns director, so I manage all of the campaigns team.
Oh, wow.
I think leading a team involves identifying individual strengths.
Definitely.
That's been a learning over the years, is that to not focus on people's weaknesses or areas of improvement, but instead focus on their strengths to see how that strength can help people do better. And use this and give people tasks for which they're good at. Identify people's strengths and have them do things they're good at, because the result will be better. It's really important to model behavior. It's important to model the kind of behavior that you expect from your team. And so as a leader, you have to do that first, which I'm still learning. But yeah, I think that's an important one.
That's really cool. So what is the challenge I think you've already answered this, but I'll just say it anyway. What is the challenge or question that you would like to leave the next generation with?
I think the next generation already has so much access to information and technology, which I didn't when I was a teenager. We had something called Orkut. That was the only thing we had, which was a social media platform at that point, other than Facebook. But and like even really young teenagers and 18, 20-year-olds are doing so much more than what I don't think I did or cared about anything at that age. And that is already so impressive. It's just that sometimes it can really fatigue you. And I think it's about prioritizing issues and I think the only thing, other than prioritizing issues, I think the only thing I would say is that figure out the best way to hold your decision makers accountable. I think that's something that is usually missed. It's something that people overlook, especially our previous generation has overlooked holding decision makers accountable and continuously on a regular basis. It's not only during the elections.
Correct.
It has to happen, all year.
I think some of these young people, especially like Greta Thunberg, as international, but we have very own from Bangalore, Disha Ravi, who was
Yeah,
recently very well known now because of her arrest and all that. So that's already a well known person from our community that has already been into this activism and all of that. And there are so many more people that we don't know who are
yeah.
already doing so much. And the final question is, how can the public help you?
We are looking to build a, a whole movement of progressive Indians
Hmm,
who are a very active part of democracy, who
hmm,
take active part in their democracy.
hmm,
And that's exactly like similar to what I just said is we want to see a country that is equitable, inclusive, and sustainable, a country that is built and maintained by the democratic power of a very engaged citizenry. So we, the only way, I think the only help the public can give is actually to look out for our work, to see what we're working on, pitch campaigns to us, come and tell us what we should work on, and be more involved in democracy. It doesn't have to be about thinking about your prime minister or your chief minister. It's about, do you know who your ward councillor is? Do you know
yeah,
who your zonal commissioner is? And hold them accountable at a very local level,
yeah,
because it has to be a bottom up approach. You can't
hmm,
just go straight to Delhi for
yeah,
everything.
yeah.
And you have to start small, and if more and more people do that, then we're going to see a lot of improvement from the bottom. So that's what I would say.
It's really amazing, especially this bottom-up approach. You don't see many top organizations doing that. They generally just go from right to the higher courts, and the
Yeah.
which is not sustainable because these
Right.
people are getting a lot of letters and a lot of other stuff that they will focus on and not going to look at too much for the NGOs. So if you start
Yeah.
working with these NGOs from the bottom up, those people will also feel more welcome and more help, more part of the society, that they will also want to change, and that will in 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 itself lead to a better society.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think even here when we work in Bangalore, something that we always do, like something that we believe in is that we don't want to be antagonistic. Our campaigns are not, we demand this. Our
Hmm.
campaigns are, we want to go meet with the decision maker and say, hey, this is what we want, but this is also what you want. So let's figure out a way to work together. So
Hmm.
we want to first approach them with through the lens of collaboration, and not antagonize them. We're not like going up against them. That's not our first step. We want to see if we can collaborate with them. If they don't, if they don't respond, or if they respond in a negative manner, then we may escalate.
Hmm.
But the first approach is always collaboration. Like that's how we've built and maintained relationships with the BBMP, for example, in Bangalore. Is like, we have those people on our phones who I
Oh,
can just text on WhatsApp and call because of, and that has taken years to
hmm.
build that relationship, is to go sit outside that office and meet with them, to
Yeah.
tell them what we're doing and work together, especially for local civic issues, whether it's lakes or garbage or those kind of campaigns. have what have Those are the ones that have helped us build those relationships with local bureaucrats, and then that helps us with a lot of things, because last year we did a massive mass distribution drive, because when we have been distributing masks for our air pollution work, but
Hmm.
last year with COVID, we actually repurposed all of our masks instead and distributed them to frontline workers
Oh,
for COVID.
wow.
And so we actually worked with the BBMP to say, hey, we have lots of masks.
Hmm.
Let's distribute them among like PHC workers and BBMP Paurakarmikas. And but that we were able to easily go and talk to them about it, because of they know what we've done before, they know our reputation, and we've worked
Hmm.
with them before. So that really helped as well. So
And
yeah.
you were saying about getting these BBMP workers on your telephone. That must have taken years. You can't just, you need to build that trust, and you
Of
can't just,
course.
so that also takes a lot of effort. And I'm really I want to thank you for that. It's not easy to just do that. So that's also great.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
So I just want to, I think, finish this interview by thank you for taking your time off from this, and just thank you for speaking to me. And I learned so much from Jatka and the great work that they're doing. And I just thank you for being the change in the lives of so many people. And I hope you continue to do great work. And
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me.
no, it was great speaking to you. All the best.
Thanks, right? Likewise.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.